France is renowned for creating delicate and beautiful pastries. Perhaps the most prolific is the colorful macaron. Enjoyed by many but successfully baked by few, the elegant yet finicky French macaron has a very involved process. The components are almond flour, powdered sugar, granulated sugar, egg whites, vanilla extract, cocoa powder, and food dye. Before any actual processing can begin, the ingredients must be weighed out. In baking, conventionally ingredients are measured out, but this is not precise enough for the macaron. Therefore, a scale is used instead to ensure the ratios of the ingredients are correct. The main component of the macaron is a meringue. A meringue is composed of egg whites whipped with granulated sugar. The process begins first by separating the egg whites carefully, ensuring no yolk is in the mix. Next, a metal bowl is wiped down with vinegar to ensure all traces of fat are removed or neutralized by the acidity. The egg whites are beat in a metal bowl by an electric mixer. Egg whites are 90% water and 10% protein. The tightly coiled strands of protein are made of amino acids that have both hydrophobic and hydrophilic components. Much like a high-energy mixer found in the lab, the electric mixer imparts energy on the egg whites, specifically the protein, and they denature or uncoil. By uncoiling, the protein chains flatten out and the hydrophobic portions are exposed, causing the protein chains to bind together around the pockets of air wherein the hydrophobic components exist, while their hydrophilic components create a wall with the water. These bubbles are more stable than the flattened out protein strands, but the protein favors bonding with fat more than it does itself. And when this happens, no foam forms due to the shape that the bond takes. Therefore, an extra care is taken to eliminate fat before whipping the egg whites. When the whites start to foam, granulated sugar is incrementally added to aid in the stabilization of the meringue. The sugar attracts more proteins to the surface of the bubbles, which strengthens the bubbles as the surface is more protein than it is water. A pinch of cream of tartar is added, because this is acidic, and that will firm the meringue. The continual whipping introduces stress to the proteins, which continue to denature and make their bonds more tight to create an even stiffer meringue. For this recipe, soft peaks are desired, so we'll stop beating the meringue once we see soft peaks, which signify that the meringue will not collapse. In the end, the result is a foam matrix, which will host the rest of the ingredients. Almond flour and powdered sugar act as a binder in the batter, adding volume, flavor, texture, and firmness. However, the size of the almond flour particles is greater than the powdered sugar, and for the macaron, the binder must be as fine as possible so as to not create a grainy cookie. One way to close off the disparity in particle size and to uniformly combine the almond flour and the sugar is to run it through a food processor. The food processor is similar to a granulator machine in that its blades decrease the size of the particles. However, the processor also generates heat, and with heat the almond flour will release oils, which is not favorable as it causes clumping. So it is important to not overblend the powder. Once blended together, the next step is to sift the mixture through a hand sifter, which eliminates any agglomerates from the powder mix by forcing it through a mesh. To introduce the fine powder binder to the meringue foam matrix, conventional stirring will not do. Conventional stirring creates a shear stress that will destroy the bubbles, resulting in a deflated, runny meringue. It is crucial that the viscosity in the batter is not too high nor too low, as later it will be extruded from a pipe. Thus, the only option that remains is to incrementally fold the powder into the foam with a rubber spatula. Folding allows the powder to combine into the matrix without generating aggregates or deflating the meringue by cutting down the middle of the batter, scooping beneath to lift the batter, turning the bowl, and then folding it back over itself. This is repeated until all powder is uniformly combined with the meringue. Now that the batter is mostly made, an extra dose of foamed egg white is folded in. This egg white acts as a plasticizer to decrease the viscosity of the batter. Finally, cocoa powder, vanilla, and food dye are added to give the batter additional flavor and aesthetic. The batter is put into a plastic bag fit with a metal piping tip and then extruded onto a silicone mat marked with circles so the diameter of each cookie can be relatively similar. The pan is now tapped on the counter to encourage any large air bubbles to rise to the top of the extrudates and escape. Next, the extrudates are left to sit for an hour before baking, which allows for the solidification and formation of a thin film. This thin film that forms traps the water inside the macaron while it's baking, disallowing it to escape from the top when it vaporizes. So instead, it must escape through the bottom of the solidifying cookie, which gives the macaron their signature ridges known as feet. At 305 degrees Fahrenheit, the macarons bake for 15 minutes. Ideally, the oven has no thermal gradient, and as this would create unevenly baked macarons. To combat this error, the macarons are placed on the second highest rack. The cookies are removed and cooled on a rack for 10 minutes to further solidify. The macarons are filled, usually with a ganache, and further assembled into their sandwich formation.